Hello, everyone. Kim Victoria here. And this is going to be kind of an interesting video for me because I have the lens of the camera basically almost touching my nose. So there's a funny image for you. But I wanted you to see my hand. I want you to see my brush. I want you to see what I see over there because the only way that I can convey some of these ideas of oil painting so that you get likenesses and right now that's what I'm teaching. There are some wonderful teachers out there, and I want to create videos that present how to paint in oils and acrylics. I'm doing separate videos for that. I want to present in a way that is different, that's presenting some different concepts, or at least trying to explain some of the same concepts in a different way. Okay, so today is about proportion. Okay, this is a biggie with newer painters or even drawing is getting proportions right. So I want to talk about proportion. And my little setup over there, I've got three objects, and I don't like to use names of objects because then we start thinking in our mind. We know what an apple looks like. We know what a vase looks like. We know what a little bird sculpture looks like. But do we know what those particular objects look like? So those are 7 feet away from me right now, and there's a reason for that. And I don't want to see any details. Now, in the camera view that you have, that seems like really, really tiny. But here in my studio, at my table, it doesn't look that far away. It's just really interesting, the perspective difference when you see it in this camera perspective. But those three objects, I really want to try to convey proportion. And in the next video, I'm going to go into the negative shapes and hidden shapes. But I think today it's really, really important. We're going to have a little bit of the hidden shapes. Now, that might be a new term for you, but we want to find the proportion of the three objects together and the proportion of the individual objects. Okay? So what I have set up here is I have a little table easel, and it's a little bit on an angle because it was the only way with my testing so that I could get both the image in the background and my paper, this is do newsprint, to all so that you could see everything at once. Down here on the table I have a styrofoam plate with just a little bit of burnt sienna and titanium white. And I have a small jar of a citrus-based solvent because I just want to turn this into a drawing medium, the paint. I just want to turn it into a drawing medium. So in the first lesson, number 1 for oil painting, I just wanted to get you warmed up, get you started. Start looking at objects and seeing them in a maybe a little bit different way. Because everything that we are looking at in our world, everybody sees it differently. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. So what we want to get across here is the idea that of choosing, of preferences, and I will always keep coming back to that. But let's get started with proportion. Now, there's a little bit of a mystery of this idea, and so that's one of the reasons I wanted to have the camera lens at it's like basically right between my eyes, the lens of the camera. So this is going to be interesting. But I want you to see what I'm seeing, and it's not going to be exact. So that's one of the reasons I'm putting the photograph up in this presentation so that you can see the photograph. Before I put that up though, I want you to see what I see. So this is going to be interesting. When I'm looking at objects, so let me get a little soup here. I like to get a little bit of some watered down. I've just got a little dab of solvent, and I'm just creating kind of like a liquidy mixture, kind of like having watercolor. Because what we're doing is we're drawing with a brush. And when I need to wipe my brush off, I've got my old denim jeans material here. Fantastic for oil painting denim. Old denim. Perfect. A great way of using old jeans. So down here is I just have a little bit of a soup of thinned burnt sienna oil paint so that it's easier for us to draw with a brush. And remember, draw means to pull. Just keep remembering that. To draw means to pull. That's all it means. It's like when you see, there's not that many left, but there are still some drawbridges. And they're a bridge that is pulled upright. It's drawn upright so that boats can pass. And so drawbridge, it doesn't mean an artistic rendering, it means to pull the bridge up. And there's other incidences of draw in our vocabulary, if you think about it. So anyway, what we're doing is drawing with a brush. So when I look at a little group like this, now remember, the lovely thing about oil paint is that we can make a mess of it. We can make our canvas, and in this case paper, quite messy. And I've seen some X-rays of Rembrandt paintings where they're showing the different layers of his thought process on a canvas. Absolutely fascinating. Highly recommend it. But you can see that he had a lot of messy lines before he settled on anything. And of course, the masters, once they got really proficient, they just knew what they were doing. But when I look at this little scene, I mean, the first thing I see, because I have this experience, and this is what I want to kind of get across to you, is we'll be going through a couple of pages here. So one of the first things I see is the way I set this up is in kind of a triangular, a kind of a triangular setup. All three of these objects fit inside this triangle. So I'm going to go through a few sheets of paper with you so that you can see some different ways of looking at this. So here's the top of the vase-shaped object, and theoretically that would be the little end of the tail over there. And this is an imaginary point to the left of the apple-shaped object. By seeing all of the objects fitting in this is a hidden shape, but it unifies the three objects, okay? It unifies them. And I think most people are able to see this right away, but I do see it approached, I don't like saying wrong or incorrect or anything like that, but this is a different concept for most people. So when I talk about this hidden shape, each of these objects is going to touch these lines. Okay, that might sound a little strange, but say this is the top of the vase, and this isn't the bottom of the vase. It's kind of like this is the baseline. So over here is the baseline of the bird, and there's the baseline of the apple thing. So our vase shape is up a little bit, and I don't quite know where it is at this point. So I'm just going to do a little quickie here. So it's kind of like this vase shape fits somewhere in the middle here, with this the top and this being a bottom. And the bird is kind of in here somewhere with its tail over here somewhere. And we're not too, I'm just kind of sketching out a thought process. And I can see that this apple shape, there's an empty space here. So it's over here somewhere. Okay? So this is the first thing I see. I'm not trying to define all the little shapes or anything, but I hope that you can see is like the apple shape is touching this line, and it's touching this line, And the bird shape touches this line and this central object. And this central object touches top and near the bottom. And we might even find out that it's a little higher, and the shoulders of this object might be hitting that instead, and the top might be up a little higher. So we can see where the triangle kind of, but it's a triangular configuration, and you'll see that a lot in old masters paintings where they've used a big triangle to unify the objects in their still life. And this could be, goodness, it could be lots of objects. I'm doing 3 because that keeps it very, very simple. Okay? So we can see, I'm starting to give you a little bit of an idea of negative space and hidden shapes. So let me go to another page here, and let's get into finding these proportions. I kind of have to do all 3 of these at once: the hidden shape, the proportions, and the what did I say? Hidden shapes, and well, this is a compositional structural line. So it's negative shapes, the hidden shape, and these objects also have a hidden shape. So I know it's a lot to throw at you. So let's just kind of play back and forth, and you'll need to watch this more than once to get it, because that's what we need. We need to hear the same information more than once in order to get it. So let me change that page. Let's go to proportion. So let me see, where can I go on the page here? All right. Yeah, as I said, I'm on a really extended arm here. I've really, really stretched out because I need to be behind the camera. Let's just start with individual objects. So I'm going to look at this small apple-shaped object. Now, when you look at that object, so I'm going to put the photo up, which I took at night so there would be less confusing reflections in it. So I'm going to put that up. But I really want you to see this right now. So when you've seen this done, I'm sure, is using your brush or your pencil or pen or whatever, but using this tool to measure. So when I hold this out, and I'm going to kind of try and see where that apple is. Okay, it's really, really small. I mean, it's like in that, because it's 7 feet away, it's really tiny. And I want it to be that far away. So see, I'm kind of measuring from the top to the bottom of the shape. And trust me, it's like, this is what you want to do, but I'm really extended my arm. And it's a good thing to have your arm extended because you don't want to be going in and out. You will not get good proportion if you bend your elbow while you're measuring. And you don't need to have it measuring the same as the actual object. Okay, let me say that another way. We have this space, and the actual size of those objects would fit in this picture plane, which is my sheet of newsprint. But if you had a little tiny canvas, and I'm going to demonstrate that, you could get all the proportions correct, but be in a very small amount of space. Or you could expand these objects to a very large canvas. So the goal is not to put on your canvas or choose a canvas or paper that will yield these objects to be the same size as they are in real life on the canvas. I hope that's making sense. I will demonstrate, okay? But if we go back to our little apple shape, And I kind of have to peek around the side of the phone to see it. So it's really, really tiny, and my arm is fully stretched out. So I have the height of the object, and when I turn my hand sideways, I can compare how the width of the object is in relationship to its height. So I'm going to do that off camera so I can see what I'm doing better. So I'm measuring the height and I'm measuring the width. And what's very interesting about this apple shape is that it is square. Okay? It fits inside of a square. Its height is the same as its width. That's its proportion. I mean, you can have an apple that's tall and skinny or short and squat, but that's not, this apple is the same width as it is in height. So I hope that's helping to make sense. So if you start out with the hidden shape that is around the apple, which is a square, all you have to do is knock off the corners a little bit, put a stem on it, and you have an apple. So it's a little more round than that, but that's generally, when you've got your proportion right, it's really, really simple to get your outer shape correct. You see it differently when you do it this way. And that's what I'm about, is seeing things differently, seeing things in a different way than your normal, everyday looking at the world and just knowing what things are. And that's perfect. We need to be able to do that. But when you want to draw or paint realistically, you have to shift your perception into a different way of seeing. So proportion is one of those different ways of seeing. Also, remember, when you look over there, you're not seeing all the sides of the object. In our mind, we know that it's 3 dimensions. It has height, it has width, it has depth. All those objects have 3 dimensions, but that's not what we see. And that's not what you can put on your paper or canvas, right? We can only see 2 dimensions. So everything that we're doing to go for a realistic look is to create an illusion of 3 dimensions. And that's where we get into putting in a shadow or something like that, is so that we start getting some illusion going. Anyway, so let's move back over to the second object. And again, so in this case, what I want to do is I'd like to measure the width first. And my arm is fully extended. And I'm getting a sense of what the widest part of the object is with my arm fully extended. And when I rotate this way, I can see, okay, it comes up about not quite halfway. And yeah, I wobble a lot because I'm at a distance and I'm trying to do this slowly. So I can see that from the base of the object up, almost goes to the top of the head of the bird object. And then if I find a reference point, I can see that it's almost double in height as it is in width. So I'm going to go off camera here and double check, since I was wobbling a bit much. I just want you to get an idea of oh yeah, definitely. Okay, it definitely is twice as high as it is wide. So if we just have like a reference line, we start here and we go like, depending on how big we want the object in our picture plane. So I can draw a square because we know it is a certain width, and we know that it is 2 times the width in height. Okay, does that make sense? It's 2 times the width in height. So 2 squares stacked on top of each other is the hidden shape of that object. And I can break it down a little bit more. I can say, okay, so if I'm looking at this width, and I'm going to the height, and I see that from the bottom up, there's a little bit of a change in the color of the brown. And I know I'm not lining up with it with the camera lens very well, but I want you to get the idea of trying this, holding it up and getting an idea that the width from the widest part of the object is equal to the bottom of the object up to where the brown changes uh, color and value a little bit, and it also corresponds to the top of the bird's head, just about. So now if I go up to that line and up to the top of the object, I can see that about halfway between here is where those shoulders are. And I'm being very crude here. I can also, it helps me to see, okay, so how wide is the base? And that's another way you can use your implement, whether it's a brush or a pencil or whatever, is that you can hold it vertically, and I can see that the width of the base is equal to the width of the top. So as you look at my photo and you do your own measurements, you can play with that yourself a little bit. So what we wind up with is kind of this kind of understanding of what's going on. And this is very crude because I'm trying to do this at a great distance from my shoulder. So I'm trying to suspend myself in air. But the main thing that I want to get across is we have a hidden shape that is enclosing the object, and it is twice as high as it is wide. So it's a one 1-to-2 ratio, or 2-to-1, depending on how you want to look at it. This one was a 1-to-1 ratio, so proportion. And if you are doing a drawing or painting of a house and you want to make sure that you have the door and the windows in the correct proportion to the overall wall that you're looking at, I mean, this is how you can do it without using a camera obscura or getting into all those grids. That's another method. And there's nothing wrong with using a grid method. But the old masters, they did it this way. How do I know that? I took old masters training and had a fabulous teacher. So now I'm looking at the bird object, and I already determined that the bird object is from the top of the head of the bird object to the bottom line, where it's touching the bottom surface, is this about the same as this vase shape, just a teensy bit more. So we have a dimension, and I'm just going to do it relative here, but it's when you see it, it is slightly below the bottom. Its bottom line is slightly lower than this, and its head is almost exactly the same as that halfway line. So what is it in relationship from the top of the head to where it touches the surface, and then go this way? And I'm not paying attention to the beak at this point. I'm looking at the front of the left side, the chest, and I'm picking a reference point. Okay, so it isn't quite the same. So if we describe a square, it won't be another square. It's a little less than a square in proportion. So here is a hidden shape for the bird. Okay? And that's from my point of view of where I am at the moment. So it makes it a lot easier then to start breaking this down because we know that we have to make this fit inside that box. So that's what it is we're looking for how to make this object fit inside that box. And we can just start playing like this and just going like, okay, we know where it is. We can see like some points like this, and we can see this little bit of a shape here. And if you want to kind of get a sense of where that is. So we don't want to see any other details at this point. We just want to get the relationship of these shapes within themselves and with the other objects. And I went a little big here because I was doing it kind of separately, because actually it's a little more squared off. I was making it the same square as the square of the vase. So I'm a bit off. But that's the beauty of painting in oils, is that I can go over this as many times as necessary until I get it where I need it to be. And then I can paint over it with more of the final kinds of lines and mass shapes. But what I wanted to get across today was mostly the idea of proportion. So I do invite you to use the photo, take a screenshot, and if you want to, use a ruler, because I am doing it in rather an awkward position. So I don't want you to be in an awkward position. Take your own objects and play with them by measuring. So, I mean, even if I go here and I can measure looking at my own measurement and say, oh, okay, that's a square, and there's that square, and that's a little less than a square. Okay, that's good. That's what I want. I want those squares, and that's a little less than a square. And this is a square, and I can measure that, and I can say, okay, there it is, and there it is, and those match. The important thing is to keep your arm straight or fixed in some way. You might not be able to, but if you can grab your elbow, it's like grab your elbow with your other hand and create an anchor, okay? So that when you do this sort of thing, you're anchored so that you're not going in and out. Because you can see how much that changes it. If you're going in and out, you're not going to get a good proportion. So this is like, yeah, I hope this makes sense and gives you an idea that you can start working with. And the biggie is practice. It's always about practice. It's about looking at the objects that interest you, okay, and then working with their proportion. But I did say I was going to show this too. It's like, okay, let's say that we have a small canvas. That's just like a little square. It's about 4 inches. Okay? And say I want to put these 3 objects in this small canvas. Well, it's more of a rectangular arrangement. So I probably would not put that exact arrangement in a square canvas because it has a strong, it's like we can see over here, This has a strong rectangular, you see where I'm going with this, right? This has a strong rectangular shape to it overall. So here's big hidden shape for this whole thing. Well, what is the proportion of our big hidden shape? Well, let's take a look. If I take that and I go sideways and I go sideways, well, guess what? Let me get some paint. This whole thing is 2 squares side by side. So we're getting some really consistent proportions. We have 2 squares here, we have a little square here, we have almost 2 squares over here, and the whole thing winds up being 2 squares. So if I do want to do this small canvas, let me get a little more paint on the brush. So if I do want to do that, I'm going to have to go, well, gee, this is going to fit in a narrow band in here, which means that I probably would want to add something else to this, because in a square canvas situation, it doesn't necessarily look good to have a strong narrow band, but it might. You also, I'm going to show you something else too. But if we take this and we look at this and we create 2 squares, and please forgive me, I am reaching quite a bit here. If we take these 2 squares, well, then we know we have an object here that is 2 squares, and we have an object here that's almost 2 squares, and then we have an object here that's a small square. And these overall fit inside our triangle. I sure do hope that's making sense. But this would be in proportion to a square that's small like this. Okay? But if I were to put this in a square, I think, it might be nice to add some flowers to that vase. Or maybe add another object behind here or something like that. But there's ways that you would play around with the composition. And part of that aspect is going into creating thumbnails, and we'll do that in a separate video. So here is a thing with proportion. All right, I'm going to change pages, and I want to show you one more thing, because this concept is so important, and you can use this with everything you do, whether it's drawing or painting or even collage. Okay? Let me pause and change paper. All right, so I went small. So now, how about we go large? Because the proportion is going to be the same. It doesn't matter whether you're a teeny tiny little canvas. You can do some pretty amazing stuff. I've seen it done, really amazing little paintings done on little tiny things, 2" by 2" or 2 by 4" little bitty canvases. Okay? But you can also go really, really large. So think of like Georgia O'Keeffe flowers and that sort of thing. So we know something about this set of objects over there. Oh, and the lovely thing about still lifes, my teacher always said that when you can paint a still life well, everything is there. When you can paint a still life well, you can paint anything, portrait, landscape, whatever, because you learn so much from doing a still life. So yeah, you want to find objects that you love in your environment and practice with those. So let's go big. So say this is our canvas. This piece of paper is our canvas right now. Well, how do I set this up? How do I find where I want these objects to be in this large space? In a way, a smaller space is easier because it's You know, that smallness makes it a little bit easier in some ways. So I'm just going to make sort of a little guess. Okay, so approximately that's about halfway. I'm on a bit of an angle, so this is not going to come out exact, but that's the beauty of oil paint, so I can keep making adjustments. But I want to give you a sense of how we would set this up in a known space. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to measure from the top of the vase to the baseline. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's a little hard for me to do it with you in the lens. Oh, goodness. So I'm going to go from the top of the vase to the baseline, which is under the bird. It's kind of like that. And if I turn sideways, holding that same arm length and go from the tip of the tail to the uh, the beak, and then go sideways from the beak over, I can see that that whole image over there is two squares side by side. So we know that. So I want to find my two squares within this space. So I'm going to be a little arbitrary here. I'm going to say, well, I want this object to be this far away from the side of the canvas. Okay? So we have an imaginary halfway point. I wouldn't normally do that, but you need to see that. So I can take my brush handle and I can go like, okay, if that is my halfway point and this is going to be my measurement side to side, I can measure that and then I can go sideways and I can see, okay, so there's the tip of the tail is going to be over there somewhere. And this measurement is also the height, top to bottom, from the top of the jar. So I'm just going to make a mark. Okay, that's going to be the top of the vase, not jar. And then I know that this side to side, top of the jar to about here, that's going to be the bottom of the bird, and this is going to be the bottom of the apple. So can you kind of see where I am I'm finding, I'm curious, I'm searching, I'm looking for where everything is in relationship to each other. Okay? I know it's a very different kind of an approach. So, since I know that this line that goes underneath the bird and underneath the apple is slightly lower than underneath the vase shape, and I know that the top of the vase to the bottom of the vase is two squares sitting on top of each other, I know I want to make this dimension into a square. So again, I can measure it now on my canvas and I can say, oh, okay, so I'm going to move it slightly to the right of center. This is an imaginary line, okay? Just an imagine. But in oil paint, I can paint over that as many times as I need to. So I'm going to create my two squares. So there are my two squares. There. So I know that the width of the vase is the same as 2 times the height. I also know that this, because we already experimented with that, this imaginary line divides the shoulders of the vase to about there. And I also already discovered that the width of the top is the same as the width of the bottom. So we start to see how we can start to construct this. And we have plenty of time to make adjustments, but we can start to see these objects appear. I also had discovered before that the apple shape is a smaller square, than the square of the vase. So it's a smaller square. And so then it's pretty easy then when I have that square to know where that's going to be. And so now we're going to go to the bird. The bird overlaps ever so slightly here, and we know that the top of the bird, top of the head of the bird, is right about at the halfway point from top to bottom of the vase, and it goes to here, and it goes out to here, and we can kind of see a little opening there between that and the vase, and we can just experiment a little bit. We know that the bird also is, let's see, from here to here. I'm just going to kind of indicate, yeah, so see there's the square of the bird, and we know the tail is not quite a square. So I hope this is making sense. I know this is really a different kind of approach, but this is how the old masters did it. This is how the old masters did it. And we're searching, we're experimenting, we're looking for where these objects are. So it's like we have to find them. We don't quite know where they are, so we're trying these different things so that we can find these objects. Okay? So are you starting to get the idea? This is all about proportion. Everything here has been about proportion, and it's we haven't quite found everything yet. It isn't all that perfectly accurate yet, but we can start to see these objects appear. They're not perfect yet, but it helps us to kind of get started. We'll go into other videos of other aspects, but they all work together, this idea of proportion, negative spaces, and the hidden shapes. So again, if we start thinking about that whole idea of our hidden shape, these three shapes sit inside of this big hidden shape. This vase shape sits inside of the hidden shape of a rectangle that is twice as high as it is wide. The bird has a hidden shape of 1 3/4 squares, side to side. The apple fits inside of a hidden shape that is square. And it just makes sense. It just all works together really beautifully. So, yeah, I hope you're getting the idea there. Now, let's go back to that square canvas for a minute, because what if we do have a square canvas? Well, we don't have to have 100% of these objects. If we have a square canvas, I mean, all right, well, let's say I'm going to just sort of cut it off a little bit and say, okay, let's, there we go. So if we had a square canvas, we wouldn't necessarily have to show all the objects. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, we don't have to show the whole apple to know it's an apple. We're going to know that. We're not going to have to show the whole tail of the bird to know it's a bird. We'll give it a beak and a dot of an eye, and we'll know it's a bird. We'll know that's a vase. We've got all of this going on. We have our hidden shape. It's still in there. It just goes off the edge of the canvas. But here's a way of putting something inside of a square canvas, and it just really fills it up, right? I mean, you could always add another object back here, just something. We could have something else going off the picture plane that we don't know what that is, but it's something there. There's just all these different ways. So the important thing with still life is, as I was saying before, it's like it is three-dimensional objects, but that's not what we see. We see only two dimensions. We see a flat image, and we're putting it on a flat surface. So, it we have to work with the two dimensions that we have to work with, right? And proportion is our first foundation for creating an illusion of three dimensionality. We need to have our proportions right for a more realistic effect. On the other hand, when you really think about it, what we were doing is very abstract. If we think about these things abstractly, I mean, that's very abstract. And we have a lot of abstraction going on in here. Even this is an abstraction. We could also do the collage. I think I mentioned Matisse, and I was looking at some Matisse stuff, and he got very abstract with his shapes, but yet their proportions still worked. And he was doing cut paper collage a lot towards the end of his life, but also I think he was enjoying it from what we can see of that work. So I hope that that has helped you and given you some ideas about how you can get the right proportions. I didn't turn on the camera before I did this particular segment, and this is what I did that didn't get recorded. So it'll just a little bit different than this one. So yeah, I think, if you've lasted this long with me, I hope that it has helped you quite a bit. And it's really about practice and keep looking at things and seeing them with this different way of understanding what you are seeing and how you're shifting your perception. This is very much of a perceptual shift in your consciousness. It's very right-brained, that is in harmony with the left brain, because after all, we are looking at these proportions, and that's kind of left brain, but it's also, it's really what's it called, a synchronization of both hemispheres. And we need that, right? We need that, because that's where we tie the intuition into the knowledge, and then this becomes second nature. I just see this stuff automatically now because I've had practice, but it took that 3 years before I reached that point where the perception became cognition and understanding of that's what was happening. I was learning how to see in a whole new way. So there's my encouragement to you is set yourself up with some objects you love and practice in this way, drawing with a brush. Do it with a marker, do it with a pencil, do it on, little small pieces of paper, and just practice seeing those proportions. It's just such a powerful thing, and if you want to do realism, this is a powerful tool. Okay, so I think that's enough for today. It's all about how you see and making decisions and having personal preferences. So it all comes together. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope this helps you. All right. Bye for now.